And so that's the recording starting. So welcome everyone. Lovely to see you all again. Just 2 weeks since we saw you all, and we've had correspondence in between, which is nice to keep us going. Today, another full 2 hours, and we do hope to have a comfort break, but remind us if we don't, anybody. It's been an interesting 2 weeks. I had snow one day this last week, and that was a big surprise. Kath, did you have some as well? Yeah, we weren't expecting it. We were expecting the hailstones, and then we had the promise of spring. And for today, it's good. If I look ahead, we're expecting more snow next week. So that's exciting. Keeps us on our toes. Variety is something that's quite important to me. It's one of my values, variety and difference. So I'll look forward to that. Today, we're going to be learning about a fabulous model that helps us understand ourselves even better. So I trust that over the last few weeks, you're just starting to notice for yourselves, just noticing, being more aware of how you are operating, the thoughts that you're thinking, the language you're using to yourself, starting to understand a little bit about how you are constructing your map of the world, and noticing that you can make choices that start to change and open up more possibilities, or negate things that used to be limiting for you. Just gently starting to be able to have conversations with yourself and perhaps with others that help you make the best of everything that's available to us. So again, I'm going to invite you just to sit there, notice, or if you're standing, some people might be standing, but whatever part of your body is touching something that's supporting you, either the ground or the seat beneath you, and just be aware that you're here. And just bring your concentration, bring your focus to your breathing just for a moment. And just notice your breath coming in and out. And with out breath, with each out breath, just let go of all those things that have been around. Just let them, put them aside. Let them just move away, to leave you space to learn some new bits of information, to build on some existing knowledge you have, and attach different meanings and purposes and usefulness to it for yourselves. And just do whatever's right for you to allow any concerns, worries, thoughts that would distract you just from getting the most from this session, just from allowing you to take from everything that's said in this group, to take what's really useful for you so you can apply it for yourselves and to help others as you move forward into your coaching. So, welcome one and all. And as per usual, we'll start off with just a little review of where we were last time and what we've done since. And of course, last time it was all about the map of the world. And from reading all your onlines, it seems that we've got a pretty good understanding of that. It's been grasped by everyone. And it is just such a fascinating consideration. Like I said, both for ourselves, and I think that's one thing I wanted to bring out, because, you know, we asked the questions and some of the things that came through, there was just a couple of people I was just reminding, it's not just about how we recall, how we respect the other person's map of the world. It's really important for us when we're coaching to appreciate that we're operating from our map of the world that has all those distortions, deletions, and generalizations too. So it's that appreciation that we're seeing through all the filters. And what can we do to mitigate any negative or limiting aspects of those when we're dealing with other people? So just, we also looked through back. You all did your own, we did the little questionnaire, that scientific longitudinal study on what your preferred style, or otherwise that very quick hit questionnaire. And we came up with your own preferences according to that. And hopefully you've tested that out, because of course it was just a little snapshot. To notice, oh yeah, that does seem right. I am noticing that I'm more this than that. Maybe some of you saw those numbers and subsequently you thought, well, I'm not quite sure. Maybe it was on that day you were just in that focus and frame. But again, just to appreciate that we have all got those different preferences. Again, something to draw out from the online responses was we've done about predicates, and everyone's fantastic, have really picked up the idea about seeing what you mean and hearing what you're saying and feeling and getting a grasp and a handle on stuff. So you seem to have got all about the predicates. We've done that fascinating exercise about eye accessing, and you seem to have grasped the eye. Gives you a clue as to how someone's processing at the moment. One thing I wanted to add is that there's lots of other things you can do as well. So if someone's preference is visual, you might want to use more visual techniques in your coaching session. You might want to be drawing diagrams. You might be wanting to share a pad with the person in those times when we could sit next to each other. You might want to be drawing things, getting them metaphorically to talk about things. You might want to be sharing things beforehand that people can prepare and look at and see. You might want to, if someone's auditory, you might want to ensure there's enough time and space to discuss things. Some clients don't need that so much, and some will. And it may be that the people with the auditory preference actually are doing a lot of the processing through articulating what it means to them verbally. And for the kinesthetic, again, many of you all well picked up that sometimes that takes a little bit a while longer to associate into feelings, so to allow time. But again, you might want tactile things. You might want to be inviting people to hold something. You might be paying extra attention to what people are doing physically with their hands and their body. And when you are in a face-to-face situation, you might want to share things. You might want to use props that enable someone that tactile release and engagement. So Kevin, did you want to talk about eye accessing a bit more before we opened up for any questions?
Yeah. Just we shared with you these ideas around eye accessing, which we think is such a fascinating topic. We shared some videos with you of what we thought were some really clear examples of eye accessing. I think the demo that Rita and I did, which I think was immediately after the session last time, I think that worked really well. So I think we had some good evidence of that. But I'm interested to hear your own examples. If you would share any examples that you've seen over the last couple of weeks. Has anybody seen any really good examples of eye accessing to share with us? Sam?
Yeah, so the day after I did the online stuff, I actually had a catch up with Tim. Tim and I worked together, and I was able to really witness the eye accessing that he was doing, and it was very, very much demonstrating auditory. So his eyes were just going side to side the whole time, and I think that's out in what the survey suggested as well.
Good.
Okay, and Tim, does that feel sort of congruent with you, what your preferred style might be?
Yeah, I probably didn't realise quite so much until I did the survey, but definitely when Sam mentioned it, I was very much using it that day. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Excellent. That's really good that both of you were experiencing it from the different sides. Any other examples?
John?
Yeah, I went back to the practice coaching call that I did. Yeah. And I did it with my son, who's he's an artist. He paints portraits, and he was well up in the visual for most of it, but he's an artist, but he loves processes. So he's got that visual, but also the kind of digital audio, and his eyes were doing exactly what they should be doing. You know, when I went back to watch the video, I was like, okay, he was up doing the visual stuff, and then suddenly he would go down to the right because he was thinking about a process, and then back up to the visual again.
Yeah, brilliant. That's one of the great things, I think, of using this kind of technology, that we've all got these resources all of a sudden that we can have a look back on. Any other examples?
I haven't got an example, but I really struggle with this because I can't do my right and my left. And doing it on screen as well, because sometimes it's the wrong way around, isn't it? Depending on what system you're using, it's just confusing the heck out of me.
Do you mean the Zoom or whatever it is sometimes reverses it?
Yes, yeah, but I can't do it on a good day. So trying to work out whether someone's on the other side is...
I feel for you, Kath. I'm not very good at that either. So maybe I wonder if it's odd, because I'm going to say forget about left and right, but I'm saying it. Maybe instead of thinking about the left and right, just wonder what their eyes are doing. What a nice little exercise. Forget, just have a circle for this. Just have a circle and a face, and just do a little arrow, forget whether it's left or right. Just spot. Just maybe do it in slow-mo, just on a little clip of perhaps your coaching session, like John used his one, and just go through and just do a little arrow there, or it's not right there, and just notice that way. And then you can refer it back, but you might not need to worry about whether it's left or right. Sometimes it helps because the R for recall is on the right, but you have to work out that it's when you're looking at the person and all of that. So the important thing is that individual calibration anyway. So just noticing, someone's eyes keep going up there, and then you might know from what they're talking about, and the context as well might give you a clue.
I think that's the real advantage when somebody is talking and the words appear to fit with the eye accessing. There was a good couple of examples in the video that we shared, quite an old video now, but I think at one point she was talking about, we looked at, and her eyes were going up at exactly the same moment that she was using those words. So I think, that's if you get an opportunity, and we know that when you're coaching, you need to be listening to the content as well. But hopefully one of the things that you'll get from this particular program is the importance of process over content. The NLP approach is all about process. So it's about how somebody is doing something, and not so much about the content that they're sharing with you, which is only a story anyway. And we're going to do a little bit more about that in the language module, which is coming up in the next time, I think, actually, Rita.
Yeah, language, yes.
One final thing we wanted to share before we move off the topic of eye accessing was something that I think we briefly touched on last time. And it's something to look out for when you are coaching, because it's when you see this, you're doing a good job as a coach. And it's when you ask a question and the person doesn't know where to start looking for the answers to the question. And the eye accessing goes something like this. So it'll be up here, down there, sideways, back up again, down. So the eyes are kind of skitting around all over the place. And it's what we call a transderivational search. Transderivational search. So basically you have asked a question, or you've said something to them, and they're trying to access what you have prompted them to. Maybe they go up to visual first, they can't find the answer there. Maybe they then go to auditory. Is it something I should be hearing? Is it, am I trying to make sense of this? Can I get a feeling about what this is? And they're not coming up with any answers, so they need to cycle round until they can find out and reference whatever it is you've asked them to think about. So in other words, they're having to dig very, very deep and go to somewhere that they've probably never been to before. So it's a good sign for you as a coach that you're really getting them to go inside to find the answers.
Okay. So in terms of anything about the map of the world, was there anything that you wanted to add, ask? Was there one little bit that's still a bit sticky for you? Or are you quite comfortable that we continue building on that? Do feel free to speak, won't you? Okay. Okay, all right. The other thing we had in the online were another set of 3 presuppositions. And again, people seemed to feel quite comfortable with the consideration that they're useful. There was, again, some considerations as to whether it's true or whether it's useful in all instances, but let me just remind you what they are. So person and behavior describe different phenomena. We are more than our behavior. And what we're going to look at more today will really help to explain that, or give you a tool to understand that differentiation. Every behavior has utility and usefulness in some context. So every behavior. This brings us back to another presupposition, that everything has a useful intent. There's a useful intent behind everything that happens, that everything we do. It may sometimes feel on reflection that it's not well placed, that behavior has got some negative side effects. But if we believe that at some level there's a useful and positive intention behind the behavior, that helps us appreciate that every behavior in some circumstance is useful. Anger can be useful in many circumstances and not useful in a number of them, in many, many more. So that utility of usefulness for every behavior. And the final one, we evaluate behavior and change in terms of context and ecology. And it is that evaluation of behavior. Is it useful to us now? Is it getting us towards our outcome? Is it right? Is it harmful? Is it hurting people? So the ecology is that check that it's not causing harm for other people. So that's one of our evaluation criteria. And the context, so that's really building on again, that every behavior is valuable in some context or another. Encouraging us to respect behaviors as well, and then wonder in what context. And again, when we'll be moving on looking at reframing over the coming weeks, and that's a sort of helpful thing, that this behavior in one context, it seems not very helpful, but actually that might be a really useful skill to have in another area or another circumstance. Were there any questions outstanding? Any tricky points for you when you considered how useful those presuppositions would be for you as a coach?
Sam?
Yeah, I think I must have missed something, because I haven't got that on the jigsaw, but I just had the consolidation.
Oh, that's good. Has anybody got them?
No.
No.
Oh, apologies then. They're really good. Oh, that's
That saves you doing the module anyway.
Oh, well, you'll have them in the next module then. So I hope that made a little bit of sense to you. We're talking about behaviours not being the whole person. Yeah. We're talking about behaviours having positive intention. And we're talking about the evaluation we do is in terms of their utilisation. Don't bother with, no, I shouldn't say that. Don't bother with the module now, you've got it. What we do have today, though, the model that Kevin's going to be sharing shortly will really help bring home some of those points about the differentiation. What actually is a behaviour and where does it fit to things? Many apologies. That was a slip of ours. That was the week when all the jigsaw was not working and all of that, wasn't it? Okay, thank you. Okay, well, if you have any questions, pop them in on that module. Okay, so I think we're going to move on then, and Kevin's going to help us understand a bit more about behaviours and so much more.
Yes, indeed. I'm just checking, actually, they're not there. So
it's not there. How did we not notice that when we were marking people's in the spreadsheet?
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, well.
All right, so over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to share with you a really critical NLP model. And we know some of you have seen this before, so it'll be a good refresher for you. It's the neurological levels model. If you've not seen it before, we're going to go through it stage by stage, and it's the best model that we have found in terms of explaining the dynamics within the human system. And for coaches, it's something that's absolutely invaluable because it will help you understand what's going on within your coachee, your client, when you're working with them. It will help you get a good understanding of yourself, a good understanding of yourself as a coach as well. So we'll walk you through the model, and then we're going to do some very dynamic exercises, and this is then going to lead into your second coaching session with what we're going to share with you today around the topic of, well, we'll hold that and we'll share it with you very shortly. So, can everybody see that? Rita, is that visible?
Yep,
okay?
that's looking,
Fabulous. Okay. So, we want you to think about this as you first of all. And
Kevin, just hold it 1 second. For anyone who's on gallery screen, just a reminder that if you click on view, screen, look at the speaker view, then Kevin will come big in your screen. Okay.
There's a frightening thought. Okay. Everybody see that? So we've got a pyramid here. Sometimes we refer to this as being the pyramid model. And we want you to think about this as being a hierarchy where the important stuff is at the top, but we're going to start at the lower levels. And I'm going to start with this lower level and put a word in here, which is this one, behavior. And what I'd like you to do is just shout out and give me your definition of what you think that word means. Behavior.
There's
Ways
nothing
in which we
complex
act.
about it.
Actions.
Was that Anita?
Sorry, I don't know whether it's my internet going slow, but carry on. I think Anita was saying something there.
I just said, yeah, the ways in which we act.
The ways in which we act, yeah. Anyone else?
What people do.
Yeah, what people do. So exactly. So in terms of behavior, it's what we are doing on a moment by moment basis. So for example, my behavior now is I'm stood up, I'm looking at the screen at this moment, I'm talking, I've got a pen in my hand and I'm doing a little bit of gesturing. Yeah, so all of that is behavior. notice when we talk about behavior, behavior doesn't have any meaning per se. It's what we ascribe to it. And sometimes we guess what that behavior is meaning. Sometimes we might be right. Sometimes we might not be. So behavior is a simple definition, a simple description of what we are doing on a moment by moment basis. All right. Now we have, if this is you, this pyramid here, we have something going around the outside, and I'm going to label this as being the environment. Yeah. Now the environment is basically where we are and who we are with. So it's the where and the who. Now at the moment, we're in this rather strange environment, this digital world on a Zoom call. And what happens, whatever environment we're in, the environment is probably having some kind of impact on your behavior. And your behavior is having some kind of impact on the environment. And what's interesting is, if I was to see you in a totally different environment to this, let's say at some point in the future, we might get to have a social event. Wouldn't that be nice? All together in some kind of social event. We might notice that people's behavior is actually quite different from these more formal settings, these sessions that we're having now. So for some people, when you change the environment, it has quite a marked impact on their behavior. But for other people, if you put them in different environments, it doesn't seem to influence their behavior to change in any major way. So we have a rule that says that if there is a change in the environment, it may change this level of behavior significantly, but it might not. Okay, let's move up to the next level now. And we have what we call here capabilities. Yeah. Can anybody tell me what capabilities might be all about?
What you're able to do.
Exactly. So this is what we are able to do, as opposed to behaviors, which is what we are actually doing. So we talk, for example, about knowledge, skills, competencies. And of course, we can't do a behavior unless we have the capability to do it.
Kevin,
so, yeah.
Could you add into, as well as knowledge, skills and competencies, could you add in authority? I mean, you may be granted authority to do certain things, not others.
Who would be giving you the authority, John?
Well, for example, a boss might say you're allowed to make decisions up to this level.
Okay.
You don't have the capability to go beyond that in your context.
Yeah. I think in that example of a boss giving you, remember that we're looking at this totally from the individual. So anything coming from a boss in your example would be coming from the outside.
Yeah, it'd be coming from the environment.
And I think what would be happening there is going to happen at this next level.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's come back to that when we talk about this level, John. Yeah. Okay, so capabilities is what we are able to do. The other thing to mention that's in here actually is this word, which is potential. Now, from a coaching perspective, what's interesting is that quite often people are coming to you to work with, and what they want to do is to affect a behavior change. So, for example, it might be something like an unwanted habit that they have. Let's take something fairly trivial, like say nail biting, for example. They want to change behavior. So, on the face of it, you appear to be working at that level, but of course, as a coach, what you are more likely to be doing is to be exploring these higher levels, because it's the higher levels that are driving the behavior in the first place. On another occasion, you might be working with somebody. A good example would be something like presentation skills. A lot of people have a requirement to do that in their role, but for a lot of people, it's the kind of the number one fear is standing up in front of an audience and presenting. Now, what they want is to be exhibiting the behaviors that will deliver a good presentation. It might be that the problem for them is in this area, which is capabilities. So they might not have the skills or the knowledge. It might be a technical skill in terms of presenting, yeah? But for a lot of people, it's more than that. So when we talk about something like confidence, for example, which is a mood state, which we're going to come on to later in the program, you know, that's unlikely to be primarily capability driven. There are some tools and techniques, and I'm sure you know a few of them, in terms of how you can manage your mood state. And we're going to teach you quite a few of those on the program a little bit later on. It's more likely, though, that it's going to be at these higher levels that is having an impact on somebody's confidence or lack of confidence. So the model gets more interesting, particularly for us as coaches, when we get to these higher levels, because we have these things called values. Somebody give me a quick definition of a value.
What's really important to us?
Fantastic, you're nailing these in one today. I like this, it's very good. So it's what's important to us. And we have these things, beliefs, yeah? So what would be a definition of a belief?
What's true for you?
Thank you, Shell. What's true for you? So this is where it gets really interesting, and this is the area that we are most likely to be operating in as a coach. When we talk about beliefs, for example, these are things that in fact, beliefs and values, these are things that are defining what's happening below. They are defining our character to quite a large extent. A belief, it doesn't really matter how many other people have that belief. There will be some beliefs that only you have, for example. There will be beliefs that you have about yourself that nobody else will share, but that doesn't make it any more or less true. it's a fascinating area to think about how we get our values and beliefs. We haven't time to look at that today, but you can guess the sources: family, upbringing, community that you're living in, personal experiences, life-changing experiences. They will all shape your beliefs and values in the same way that things like research, reading, discussion, debate, argument, all of those things will have an impact here. But from this perspective, what we're saying is that we have a chunk of content that we are labeling as these are the things that are important to us. And remember, this is not just an auditory digital activity here. When we talk particularly about beliefs and values, we're getting a lot of kinesthetics, we're getting a lot of feeling, because these are the things that are important to us. And these are the things that we believe. And some of those beliefs will be very deep, very important beliefs. Others, they're still a belief, but they are not particularly significant. They're not life-changing beliefs. They're not life-defining beliefs. So we experience a lot of kinesthetics around here. So when you're working with a client again, and you can begin to recognize when you're really tapping into what their beliefs and values are. Let's move on. There are another 2 levels to look at. We talk about here identity. And what's happening as we're going through this model, some of you may have noticed, is that if you think about behavior, for example, it's very, very easy to describe behavior. And we can be very specific in terms of behavior. So one of the great things that you can do as a coach is you can feed back to somebody what you are observing, and what you're feeding back on is behavior. So the language that we use to describe the lower levels is very straightforward. As we start to go higher up, we get into the area of values, for example. Values linguistically are very complex. And we talk about things called nominalizations. So a good example would be something like respect, or love, or honor would be another one. They would be examples of values. But if you think about those, they are quite complex concepts. Whereas behavior, when we're describing what we are doing, it's very, very simple. It's simple to understand. It's simple to find the language to describe. When we go higher up this particular model, it has more complexity. So that when we get to this level of identity, the best way of describing what this is it's the sense of one's self. So it's that deep-rooted feeling of who we are. And it's difficult to put into words. We might do a little bit on this later on in the program. But the question, who are you? In a paragraph, describe who you are. Where would you start with that question? It has a degree of complexity that's not present in the lower levels of the model. And yet, we are often very clear on who we are. Sometimes there might be some ambiguity. We might be going through a phase of our life when our identity is changing. For example, becoming a parent, or retiring from a long-standing career. What we might be experiencing there is some kind of major shift at this level. So that can change. We'll come back to, there's a couple of rules that we want you to be aware of. We'll share those with you in a moment. And then the final level up here is where we are branching out to connect with other systems. Now, I use that word systems because inherently this is a system, and the system is an individual, is you, if you like. And at some stage we connect with other systems. So we talk about this higher level as being something around connection. Sometimes you will see this labeled as spirituality, which in itself I think is a fairly complex concept. Sometimes we talk about contribution. So what other systems are we wanting to make a contribution to? And finally, the word that we use up here is this one, which is purpose. And that will be something that we'll be exploring with you later on, which is the idea of having a life purpose. Because that's one of the great things you can do as a coach, is to help people explore these levels, particularly around what their life purpose might be. So that's the basic model.
We had a couple of questions.
Rita, you were going to talk about the rules, but we've got a couple of questions, yeah?
Yeah. So
Come
Cheryl,
back to John's as well.
I missed what you said there, Kevin, sorry.
I'll come back to John's point as well.
Okay, and John's point, so these are the three, we'll just put them to you. So the other one, is it fair to say NLP isn't too concerned about how we arrived at our beliefs? And from Simone, how does personality play into this? And then John's point about authority.
Okay, great questions, by the way. Let me just address John's one first. John, my take on what you said there, I think, is that if a boss was giving you permission or authority to do something, that would change your belief. So that you would have a belief all of a sudden that you were allowed to do something, or that you could do something. Does that make sense, John?
Yeah. I mean, it's right on the border, isn't it, between beliefs and capabilities. With so many things, if you believe you're able to do something, sometimes that's enough to give you the capability to do it. So it's right on the border of it, I guess.
I would certainly concur with the idea that if you believe you're able to do something, sometimes that's enough. It's important to recognize that where the change is taking place there is at this level. So if you believe all of a sudden that you can do something, what has happened is a change is taking place in here, and that's then driving a change lower down. But the change has taken place here, and I think for me, that would
just going all visual on you, maybe a bit kinesthetic. If you took it, so if you take a parable or an analogy of a wall or a room,
yeah,
and there's a wall with a barrier, you can't get past that wall. You don't have the capability to get that past. If there's, it's a physical barrier, so you don't have the capability to get past it. I suppose my question is how much there might be a case where a law or a boss's instruction means you can't overstep a mark. So is that, is the wall of belief, or is it limiting your capability? That's
do you mean a physical wall, or do you mean?
Well, how different is a physical wall to a law or a rule?
I would say this sits in environment as the constraints within the environment, and then we interpret what we see as constraint. We believe it as a constraint or an opportunity. Some people might envisage that wall as something to overcome, something to hurdle, something to work around. Other people would see it as a block to what they're doing. And that way of seeing it is about the beliefs they have about it. So the wall will mean something different to everyone. And it's at that beliefs level, which switches it on or off, I think, John, for me. You say, boss says I can't do it. You either say, well, I'm going to influence them to change their mind. Or you say, oh, that's the end of the story. I can't do it because my boss told me I couldn't do it. So it's what how you're interpreting that, how you're representing it to yourself as a full stop or as a challenge. And that seems to all happen around the beliefs level for me, at least.
Okay.
Yeah, and indeed, if the boss is saying something to you, you may totally ignore what's being said. So in other words, your belief about what you are able to do hasn't changed.
Okay. Thank you.
What was the second one, Rita?
Is it fair to say that NLP isn't too concerned about how we arrived at our beliefs?
I think the short answer to that is yes. There is a caveat to that, but I think what NLP is dealing with is what's in the model now. So, if your client is coming to you and is wanting to enact some kind of change, what they are dealing with is the content of the model. So they have currently things that are important to them, things that they believe. You could spend a lot of time exploring where these things came from. That doesn't necessarily change anything. What we are interested in is, what's in there now and what can we do with that content? So let's say somebody has a limiting belief about themselves, something that is holding them back. The best thing I believe that you can do as an NLP coach is to help them change that belief. Where they got that belief from, an incident when they were 6 years old, does it really matter? What matters, I think, is the fact that the belief is there now and what can we do with it now? So it's fair to say that in NLP, we don't spend a lot of time exploring the why and how did this model get built up in the first place, but it's dealing with what's there now. And as a coach, what we're going to encourage you to do is to help people explore these levels, because particularly the higher stuff is often in the unconscious. So there are things that you believe, for example, about yourself that you're not that aware of, but they are there and they are driving your behaviors. And I think the other one
was about personality, if you can still hear me, Kevin.
It was about personality, wasn't it?
Yes. So
yeah, I can hear you.
Personality.
So the other one was about personality. Yeah. Now, personality is an interesting term. It's not a term that we would sort of put into this model. However, my definition of personality would be, what would it be? That's a good question. Firstly, it's what we are seeing of an individual. And all that we ever see of an individual is behavior. We'll show you some alternative ways of looking at this in a moment, which will really reinforce that. But I think that's such an incredibly important point, that whenever we are with people, all we are seeing is their behavior. So in that sense, when we talk about somebody's personality is X, we are saying what we are seeing of their behavior. But I think what we are doing is we are making some assumptions about their capabilities, their beliefs and values, and their identity. So we are saying, when we're describing personality, we are saying this person is like this, and that's generally quite a generalization. When we're talking, we're trying to encapsulate the person, give a sense of the person by describing what we're labeling as personality. So it's almost like we're taking a slice through here and saying that's who the person is. But actually, it's people are much more complicated. As Rita and I will tell you, after years of working in this area, just when we think we've got something that can readily describe people easily, then we always have to back off, because people are just so complex.
Which is wonderful.
Absolutely.
And Shell, does that help, Simone? Excellent. And then Shell's got a lovely one as well. Please, can you give me an example of how someone would articulate their identity separate from reference to their values and beliefs? Or is it not possible to articulate identity?
Well, we'll probably do a little bit of work with you later on in the program, because working down here is the easier stuff. Working up on these levels is more complex. One way into this would be to get somebody to describe the roles that they have. So, I might describe myself as a, facilitator of learning, a father. Somebody else might describe themselves as an engineer, a sister, a husband, a wife, whatever. So that's a way into this, but it's much more complex than that. Sometimes we will get people to, draw themselves, draw a picture that really encapsulates who you are. So I think the thing I would say, though, is that we recognize ourselves. Language is not always so important if inside we have a deep recognition of who we are. There may not be any language associated with that. For example, when I think back to the sort of 10-year-old or the 12-year-old me, I still recognize something that's in there that's within me now. Can I put that into words? Give me 2 or 3 weeks.
And lots of paper or computer time to capture it.
Yeah.
But
I think the other thing,
might be able to give it a colour or a shape or a size or a feel or a metaphor, and that's where the metaphors work better, particularly because it's at an unconscious level.
We sometimes use the word essence here. What's your very essence? And I think sometimes other people recognize it. And I think one of the things we strive to do in life is to get people to really recognize our essence. And we want to be true to who we are. And we want other people to see that and witness that.
And we'll probably share a little bit more online around the identity as well as Shell, but it's a really fascinating area to consider. Given that, Kevin, will I move on to the 2 rules?
Yes.
Okay, particularly given that 2 fantastic rules. Why this model that describes the system of a person, a human being. That pyramid we're saying is the person, you, I, whoever. Why it's even more powerful. So it's useful to be able to differentiate those different levels and articulate them as best we can, with the flexibility at the bottom and the more conceptual at the top, that pyramid. But what's incredibly powerful is to appreciate that any change that happens at a higher level will definitely impact the levels below. So a change in a value or a belief will impact, as in switch on or perhaps switch off some of your capabilities, and therefore limit or promote different behaviours. Now, it's true to say that changes at behavioural level, when we spoke about learning a new skill, so people, what was the one you were talking about, biting nails? You can work at behavioural level and you can change the biting nails, and might last for a little bit of time. But if you're only working at that behavioural level, the likelihood is that it's going to be a short-term change. If you work up the levels and you're talking about the values and beliefs, what is it? What is the positive intention behind the nail biting? What does it give the person? Is it a way of relaxing, letting go of stress? When you work at that level and understanding and appreciating that, then the nail biting takes care of itself. If you only look at changing the behavior, what might happen is you just change that one behavior, biting nails, to another behavior, chewing your hair bits, chewing the end of it. You're just transferring what's happening rather than dealing with cause. But a change at the higher levels will necessarily change things further down. And that's why, as a coach, as a leader, we're talking about the importance of working at that higher level, of understanding your coachee, their beliefs and their values, because it's through the changes that happen there that the other changes pretty much will take care of themselves. It's fascinating. I think when my first Kevin, in our history of NLP, Kevin was someone I was fascinated. He was already doing NLP, and so we did coaching, so I'd understand more about it. And one of the things, I was a bit of a workaholic, give me a label. I was working hard, and then family life and seeing my husband wasn't happening so much, and it became like, silliness. And all we were talking about in one session, Kevin was just saying, well, what would you like? What's important to you? And I went through what was important to me, and being at home and spending time with, and we discussed all that. And it was a casual coaching conversation. It's appeared casual, but of course it was very well played out. And then the next time I went to see Kevin, 2 weeks later, the next time we had put the half an hour aside, he just said, anything different, about your life, work style, your balance? And it was only when he asked me, I realised I'd been leaving the office and getting home by 6:30 every evening. I hadn't had to think about it. It just, something had shifted in terms of bringing to my awareness that there were things that were equally as important as my career and whatever ambition or whatever else was driving it, just simply by changing and prioritising up there at the values level. I had unconsciously manoeuvred my diary management, changed my psyche, whatever I'd done, and it just happened. And what's fabulous when we get people, managers and leaders working with their teams, to notice when they are able to have conversations at that level and understand how it takes very little effort then for that to be impacted in the behaviours that happen. So any changes at the top levels, higher levels, will impact the change all the way down to behaviour. And it's only when you change behaviour that you get your outcomes. It's through behaviours you get your outcomes. So a very valuable place to put energy is at that level of values and beliefs. The next area is just to consider again the system. So the pyramid is a system. And as a system, it's going to work most efficiently and effectively when it's aligned. I imagine most of us will have an experience where our pyramid, we're doing things, maybe had a job that didn't quite align with our personal values or our beliefs about how it should be. It might have paid the mortgage, might have got us money to pay the mortgage, so it was achieving some of our values, but something about it wasn't quite marrying with ourselves and our true belief about ourselves, our values, about what was important to us. And what happens when that alignment isn't there is we have this incongruity, which can lend itself to or present itself in terms of stress, migraines, illness, back pains. A lot of the physical expressions of someone being out of kilter, I believe, come from not having that alignment, the stress of working and being long term in something that doesn't match with you. So what we're striving to do, or certainly we are in our coaching, is to assist people in achieving a much more aligned and congruent pyramid, so that their behaviours are actually an external expression of going right back up the pyramid of who their essence is. So that essence switches on the capabilities and switches on then the behaviours, so that people outside can see us as aligned and congruent, and probably more importantly, we have that sense that we are being at our best, who we're meant to be, however we language it, that everything's falling into place very tidily. So they're the two key rules in terms of higher level will impact lower level. Sometimes it works the other way, but it's less likely to be a long-term change. But the long-term sustainable change work at the higher levels to impact down. And then we want to play, work towards having a true alignment of that pyramid to be our most efficient and effective.
And I think just on that last one, Rita, I think that's the key thing for you as a coach. That's the key thing we're working towards, is helping that person be more aligned. So, you know, if you keep that one thing in mind, I think that will serve you well. This is called, and you'll see a lot more about this. I'm just going to share screen now. This is called the neurological levels of development, from a guy called Robert Dilts. We'll be sharing more stuff online on this, so it will become very familiar to you. And just one other, this is another way of looking at it, and it's the iceberg. So this reinforces the point that the behaviors are the bit that's visible, and everything else is under the waterline. Just very quickly, one other thing that might help some of you with this is that this is sometimes drawn as the layers of an onion, with the behavior on the outside and the other levels, you know, going deeper within, so we get the sense of identity right at the center. So that representation might work well for some of you in terms of understanding the model.
Okay. Now, if that's sitting reasonably...
Okay, so we're going to play around with it now, aren't we?
Oh, I missed what you said there first, but you probably said we're moving on now. Yes?
Could we have a wee break, please?
Yeah.
You can have a wee break, and
we can have a wee break indeed. A tiny break.
And so please make it about 3 minutes if you can, or however long you need to be comfortable, of course. And we'll come back and do a very quick demo on something then.
Rita, I don't know if it's my internet connection or yours, but it appears to be going slow at times.
Yes, I don't know what to say about that. I'm noticing you're freezing occasionally, and you might be seeing the same of us.
Okay.
I think predominantly it's worked on here, and I'm recording, so it should be okay. I'll just pause recording.
Yeah.
I need to start. All right. Okay. Well, we can't do anything. We haven't got that magic worked out yet in terms of sorting the internet, but it seems to be recording mostly all right from this end, so you will have catch-up time as well on that. We'll just wait a few moments for Kath and Tim and Anita. Unless anyone's got any pressing questions at the moment, as we move on, we're going to be building on and looking at values next. But if there was any questions in this moment or two. You know that Mark shall.
Just a quick top tip I picked up from an article, that if you're in a Zoom meeting, not this one, definitely not this one, but if you're in a very, very boring meeting, it's just, you want to pull your teeth out and it's awful. What you have to do is you freeze with your mouth open for like 30 seconds, and then just click end meeting, and everyone assumes you've dropped out.
Very good.
I'm so delighted you had that caveat up top, John. Not this one. We did wonder actually doing, Kevin, doing, do you know the bingo sort of thing that used to do meetings to get corporate phrases? We wondered if, but we don't want you to be distracted, but I'm going to say it anyway. You could catch the beliefs that come out, you know, because they're so implicit, our values and the beliefs. You know, if you just listen to what I'm saying again, you will pick up the beliefs and values that I hold to be true and important to me just by listening to me. So again, maybe that resource you have of your early coaching session, to review it and just notice what beliefs were streaming out of someone's mouth. What were they telling you in words that let you know what was important to them? Because once you tune into that, it's very obvious and helpful. Oh.
And in fact, a great technique as a coach, a very simple one, is just to point out to your coachee when they are sharing a belief. You know, oh, that's an interesting belief you have there. Just making them consciously aware of it.
And you heard the way that Kevin said that was quite light. It's not, that's a belief, you know, as if it's built in stone. It's like, oh, that's an interesting belief. So it's quite a light touch. Beliefs are something we can change. They're not there. They're not embedded in stone, even though many of us may used to have thought they were. We're moving on from that. So now we've got an understanding of that fabulous system that helps us understand people and much more, but we'll get onto that another time perhaps. We're going to concentrate on that level that we said was so important and we're going to look at values in particular. And we're going to look at your values, and it is an exercise that you'll be carrying on to do your coaching with as well. So we're talking about something called values elicitation, and it's a process of helping someone articulate their values. And we will then take from the whole process, we find out what the values are, then we help the client prioritize them. And in doing so, we're helping towards the alignment again, because we can have conflicting values. And the process of actually identifying them consciously and then aligning them in priority order can be incredibly, the word that most clients say, they feel lighter. That confused situation has changed, and by having that prioritization, it makes choices and decision making very much easier. So the benefits are enormous of this exercise, And what we're going to do you remember the last time when we've done the exercises with Grow, we just took very short time to introduce the topic, and you had very short little time snaps to have a go at it. We are going to be in that situation again, because what we're wanting is just to establish the principles, and then you'll be tasked with a little bit of playful activity between now and when we see you again, to record a session with someone that you're going to do the values elicitation with. So first and foremost, I'm going to demo with someone, and that someone is going to be a volunteer from yourselves, because we have an odd number of participants today. So I'm going to ask for a volunteer, and I'm simply going to demonstrate how do we elicit someone's values. Okay, so I suppose my first thing is, who would you like to volunteer?
I'm just looking. I think we've lost somebody, because we've now got an even number. Who have we lost?
Well, then it's Kevin's volunteering then. Who have we lost?
Kath left. She was having a problem.
Oh yeah, Kath left.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think she was having a problem with sound. Hopefully she'll resolve that and come back in. So I think she's coming back in now. She's coming back.
She could hear us very well then, didn't she?
Let's tell her that she's the one who's volunteered. No.
She was having temporary problems with sound. She's connecting to audio at the moment. Welcome back, Kath. Do we think it's resolved? Can you hear us? Maybe not.
Yeah.
No. Well, Kath's probably not the best person to volunteer for this little demo. So what we're going to ask you to do, and what individuals are going to do, if you remember, you can elicit values around any aspect of your life. And you remember the life wheel we shared? They might be topics you might want to choose. But I'm going to suggest perhaps for this demo, we ask someone, it might be about life, so we could go for the big one right at the top, or it could be eliciting the values about being a coach, seeing as how that's the focus of what we're doing here. But it's up to you, because we can work with anything.
Could be something like health and fitness, or hobbies and interests, something like that. And just to say as well that we're aware one or two of you have seen part of the process. What's going to be different this time is we're going to extend the process so that it's full, and we're going to kind of teach you to do it as a coach this time. So it will be different in that respect. So would anybody like to volunteer to do a little bit of work with Rita? And then the bonus here is that you get to work with Rita through the process as well. Who would like to volunteer to put themselves in that position?
Okay, if you want.
Oh, who?
Mark, I think.
Well, show okay if you want, so I don't mind.
Was that you, Mark?
I don't mind.
Shell or Mark? Toss a coin.
Go on, Mark.
Go on then.
Mark, thank you very much for volunteering. What we're simply going to do, I'm going to just be asking you a simple question. First, though, what area of your life would you like to look at?
Let's keep it simple then. Let's do health. Let's do health and fitness.
Health and fitness. Okay, so we're doing health and fitness, and the first topic is the first thing to do is to ask the person how they describe it. So I'm not going to call it activity, because it's health and fitness for Mark. So it's very useful to keep the client in that place where they're thinking and using their words to keep them in that space. So Mark, what we're wanting to do here is just explore what's important to you about health and fitness. And so I'm going to do that by asking you some very simple questions. I'm going to a simple question. What's important to you about health and fitness, Mark?
What's important to me is, if I dare use the word, sort of long-term sustainability. So I think it's about investing now for the future. So I think I want to remain fit and healthy because I want lots of life ahead of me still.
What was the last bit? You want to remain healthy and fit, and
because I want to have A long life ahead of me.
So is having a long life important to you?
A long, healthy life.
A long, healthy life is important to you. Okay. And what's important to you? What else is important to you about health and fitness?
It maintains my capabilities to do things.
So it's important to you to be capable of doing things.
Yeah.
Okay. What we're looking for here is probably just maybe 3 to 6 values. And values are often those concepts, like we said, the single words, the simple phrases that just encapsulate what's important to you. So capability to do things. And what else is important to you, Mark?
Well, I like sort of my holidays. I want to be sort of active, so I want to be able to I like to walk, I like to cycle, and I want to keep doing those things. I don't want to sit around.
So is being active important to you?
Yes.
And let's ask once more, what else is important to you about health and fitness? You want that life, a long, healthy life. You want to be capable of doing things and being active. What else, Mark?
I want to preserve my mental state.
Preserve your mental state.
Yes.
So your mental state is important to you. Okay. All right. For now, it's as simple as that, what we're asking you to do as a demo. Key things are that I was first and foremost, identify what's the area you're working with the individual on, what is the area they want to explore their values on, and then simply ask that question, what's important to you about? Now, some people sometimes will give a lot of a sentence to explain it, because obviously people are thinking it through. They're going internal and they might not have been asked this question before. So sometimes you can get a long sentence, sometimes you'll get a word. Where it is the longer sentence, what I was wanting to do there is just succinctly capture, which tended to be towards the end of Mark's sentence, what was the actual thing he got to in terms of working it out for himself? What was it that was important? And then simply capturing those. And when we come back, you'll see different things I might do with that. But for now, I think that's all we wanted to do, Kevin, isn't it, in terms of establishing?
It is. Just to emphasise a couple of points, really. One is, notice that Rita's input there was minimal. So as a coach, we don't want you to be giving any discussion, any judgments, any evaluations. Basically, all you are doing is asking that one question, what's important to you? You can repeat back what they've said, but that's all. You are very much in the background, yeah? Remember, rapport, notice eye accessing, listen out for any predicates as well.
Okay, and how many rooms have we, Kevin?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6 rooms, okay. And I'm assigning randomly.
If you make it 7, Rita, I think that will put me and Mark in. But anyway, you'll know how to do that. You'll need to take us 2 out, won't you?
Okay, I just don't know how to cancel the 6 you told me, though. That's all. Let's see. Open all rooms. Add a room. There we go. That should do. And there we've got. And let me just move. We're getting there, people. And then we just need Mark and I to be together. Oh, it's a little bit more complicated than usual. So hopefully
it's going to be 10 minutes. This 5 minutes per person. Yeah. Make sure you get an equal amount of time.
Okay, I think that's it. I'm trusting that's it, everyone. So have fun, and Mark, I'll see you in a room and we'll carry on. Kevin, Mark, stay, don't go anywhere.
I won't go anywhere.
Because I'm leading the thing, Kevin. So unless you want to carry on, I think Mark and I stay here. And hopefully Chrissy and Joe. Joe, have you got a room? Yes. Mark, because I'm the host, you and I are staying here together, and Kevin's either disappearing or as we carry on working through this. You happy with that? The other thing I suppose that's important for you, though, you might want to do an elicitation on me about coaching practice, isn't it?
Yeah, that's thrown one in the deep end. I should have thought about it carefully.
Well, let me just. I think that would make sense, because otherwise you're not getting the opportunity to have a go, really, are you? So that makes sense for you. I'm trusting Kevin's going to keep an eye on the time. How long did he say we had? Because I was
10 minutes.
I'll keep an eye.
All right, so Kevin's keeping an eye on the time. And Kevin, we are coming back. I'll tell you what I'll do, though. I'll just capture a few more for you, Mark, if I may.
Okay.
And then, so that, because if you're quite happy to do this, because then we'll carry on working on you as the demo. When people pop in, we'll show them the next bit. And in between, you have a chance just to start listing values for me in some area. So, brilliant. So in terms of your health and fitness, what else is important to you? So you've got that having a long, healthy life, the capability to do things, to be active, and to have some sort of mental state, which is probably a useful one or a good one or something. What sort of state do you want?
Well, it's a very sort of trite statement about healthy mind and healthy body, but I do think actually if you keep yourself active in all walks, keep both your mental and physical self active, then the two reinforce and support. Yeah. But that seemed like too long a sentence to try and deliver. So that's what I mean by that.
So a healthy mind, would that be better than mental state, or is that as well as a mental state?
Yeah, it'd probably be better, possibly better.
Possibly. And it's not this, it is sort of the same one, an articulation of the same thing, not a different thing. Is there anything else that's important to you in terms of health and fitness?
I suppose a topical one at the moment is to have some disease resistance. So yeah, if I'm physically healthy, I stand more chance or less chance of being badly affected by things like COVID-19 or whatever.
Yeah. So disease resistance, yeah. Good point. It probably has brought it to our profile. Disease. I have no idea how to spell that. Resistance. Okay. Okay, we've got a few there. I think that's ample to play with. So would you like to just spend a few minutes? I'll have to think of what would you like to elicit some values from me, Mark?
Yes, certainly. Just get myself set up. So what area would you like to focus on?
Ooh. I think I'm going to chunk down. I'm going to chunk quite small. I'm going to talk about painting.
Painting.
My painting. Let's call it painting.
In an artistic sense, painting?
Rather than decorating. Yes.
No, it's important to understand.
Good. My creative pursuit of painting.
Okay. So what's important to you about
that? Using my creativity.
Using your creativity.
Spending time. Me time. It's just me time. Emmy.
Okay.
Need.
Yeah, understand that.
Um,
What else might be important?
what else is important? Liking the final output, liking the outcome.
Liking the outcome.
Yeah. Using colour. Learning and developing.
Okay.
And being challenged. Phew. Oh, this is quite cute. I haven't done this before.
What was that? Yeah.
You want to do the big ones. That's quite interesting.
Being challenged.
Yeah.
Being challenged personally or wider.
I'm going to stop you there. It's good that you're asking, but it's not for you to explore any further.
Okay.
So it's interesting to what extent do we say. So if you want to ask me the question again, because it might be actually a really good one. Go on. To be challenged personally, or what was the other thing you said?
Yeah, or was that from a wider context? So
okay. It is personally, and I'd just be a little bit cautious going quite so fine into the detail of what I said. Do you understand that? You're just capturing it, and there's that fine line between exploring what I said so we make sure you've got a value, and guiding me to a way that might not have been so important. So it was quite useful. It was on the borderline for me in terms of taking me somewhere where whatever challenge meant to me, it didn't matter. It doesn't matter for you once I know what it is. Do you know what I mean? It's that really fine balance we're wanting to achieve. So, yeah. Okay. Kevin, are you still in the background there? No.
Just in the sensible thing and got off.
Well, the only thing, Mark, I'm just trying to work out to what extent I want to move this forward with you before we call people back in, but they've obviously got to go two ways. So did that make sense, that amount to which we as the coach have to understand what the value is? It's like,
yes, yeah,
it is very different what I mean by challenge than you. Or like these ones, being active. To me, being active might be running a marathon every month. To you, being active might be something totally different. So I don't want to suggest that at this stage. And you'll see when we come to a later stage, then we ask you to explore, well, what does that actually mean, Mark? What does that actually mean to you? But at this stage, it's like staying in this sort of bubble of, okay, being health and fitness, my health and fitness, I want to keep you in my health and fitness. So we just want you to be in that space of your health and fitness. And I'm just noting down. You've got a lovely process of working it through. So you're sharing sentences. You've tended to share sentences with me, haven't you? So I'm trying to make it tighter, but I'm also doing my best not to tarnish what you're saying, just to catch out the point. So it's really important when I say, oh, is it a healthy mind? I don't want you to say, oh yeah, because that sounds quite tidy. It's like, is that what it means to you in here?
Yes, yeah. No, I think sometimes that challenge of saying, in 5 words or whatever you describe it, I would my normal style would be to expand and then contract it, to phrase it in sort of sentence form and then try and summarize. I'm not always I don't always have that sort of acuity to get straight to a word or a colour that describes something. I struggle a bit more with that. And
especially, Mark, given that, have you ever been asked that question before? What's important to you about health and fitness, Mark? It's a new thing, isn't it? I'm guessing, in terms, you might have thought about it, but in terms of articulating it, it might not be something you're doing all the time.
No, exactly. Yes, exactly. So it's very easy to sort of think, it's obvious, isn't it? It's got to be important to everybody, but actually, as you say, it's not the same for everybody. And what is it? Why is it important? Is something the individual needs to think about. I don't necessarily have to explain it all, but
and that's the thing as well. Of course, it may be important for me to understand why, and you might prompt me to understand my why, about my painting, but it's not for you to know the answer as the coach, so it can be fascinating and you want to delve into it, and you sort of have to hold yourself back and say, right, what's the process here? What's the question that I want to ask? So, and it is a very interesting, simple way, and clients, you automatically get something from it very quickly, I believe.
Yes.
See how much, if any, difference it makes to you, Mark, in the short term.
No, indeed, and it is very difficult to stop yourself digging into that. That next
it's one of the most challenging.
All right, Anita, they're just reviewing.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Oh, sorry, we thought we butted in.
No, sorry, I was in full flow just chatting, and what I was saying, which I think is pertinent to all of us, is in the early days of coaching, one of the biggest challenges is not getting too curious about the content, not getting involved, not wanting to know more, and just saying, okay, this is the content, it belongs to the client, they know everything they need to know. What's the question I can ask that helps them visit that wealth of knowledge they have in a way that brings them a new perspective on something, but not just engaging in conversation. It was challenging for me. I hope I'm getting better at it. It's like sitting on your hands. Do you remember the exercise we did about rapport? It's almost like you want to ask, you want to know more about, healthy mind, what's that like for you? But no, you've got to just zip your mouth and just hold the space for the client.
So for those who are coming back, how did you find that activity? Is that straightforward? Yeah. Any questions or observations? Vicky, who are you working with today?
I was working with John.
John, okay. Did he behave himself?
Yeah, oh yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Like I got a reputation.
Did you not know that yet, John? Did you not know that? Self-awareness all the way. Is that everyone back?
Did you find the process straightforward, Vicky?
I did, but I think because of counselling, I wanted to go further into things, so I was having to pull myself back all the time and not try to reword things or, I don't know, explore things.
Yeah, well done.
Well, an interesting thing. So you said some of us had seen this before. I'd seen it before, and there was a subtle difference in the way that Rita did the questioning. So the way that Rita demonstrated it, she'd say, what's important to you? And then she'd say, what else is important to you? What else is important to you? Whereas the way we'd had it demonstrated before was you'd say what was important to you. And then the next step was what's important to you about that. So it would refer back to the first answer. So it was like a progression deeper rather than going sideways.
I think that might be the other.
John, that was a different activity, actually. That was when we did meta programs.
Yeah. No, it's just that when we were questioning, our temptation was to go, what's important about that, referring to the previous answer.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we'll come back to that later. That was towards and away from in meta programs, I think.
That's what we did.
Yeah. So it is.
Right.
Keep it clean. Remember, the purpose of this is for the individual to articulate what's important to them. It's not so important that you understand. If somebody says challenge, you don't really need to understand what that means to them. You will have your own meaning on it, but that's not important at all. You're merely the facilitator. What's important is their map of the world, not yours.
Okay. So
any other quick questions or observations before we move on to phase 2? Anita?
How encouraging can we be before we're already putting some kind of importance on a something or the other that they might say, to try and keep it open? You're creating a list of things, aren't you, here, really?
You can be as encouraging as you like to help them articulate their values, but it's not for you to suggest things or come up with your own language. You know, it is just about them articulating what's important to them.
Thank you.
And I think a lot of that might happen, which I might not have demonstrated fully today, is in the positioning of the whole exercise. You know, saying what we're wanting to do, and your values are often held at an unconscious level. So now's your opportunity. I'm going to prompt you. I'm just going to ask you simple questions to draw them out. So perhaps the inoculation and the positioning, Anita, is what helps in that encouragement. And then leading on from that, if I may, Kevin, was there anyone else wanted to comment before? If people get stuck, there's another couple of ways to help. I probably won't demonstrate them here as such, or I might do, depending. There's 2 particular ways to help someone to tease out something from people. One is to ask the person, so I might, Mark, just stay with me while I consider this. Being active, you want to get people in the place, or when we're talking about health and fitness. So what I might ask the person is, can you remember a time when health and fitness has been just the way you want it to be? Well, can you think of an occasion where you really had health and fitness the way you want it to be? Can you think of an occasion where that was the case?
Yes.
Okay, and that's all. I don't need to know the content. So yes, you've got one occasion. Mark, can you think of another occasion? I'm asking you to think of a specific occasion, you know, a moment, a day, an experience when you felt that health and safety was just the way you wanted it.
Fitness.
Health and safety.
Yeah, health and safety is slightly different.
You see how important it is to get the words right. So just bring Kevin along. Can you think of another occasion, Mark, where health and fitness was just the way you wanted it? You were experiencing it just on par for you.
Unbelievably, yes.
Yeah, excellent. So now you've got 2 occasions, 2 events, 2 recollections in mind. And I just want you to do a little quick exercise in your mind's eye. I just want you to compare and contrast and wonder and notice what's similar about those 2 occasions.
Okay. If I were to articulate it, I'll just think about it.
I'm going to ask you, given that you've been able to identify some things that were similar, were those things that were important, that are important to you about health and fitness? Does it allow you to feel that something else is important to you, given that your recollection of those 2 events and the similarities?
Yeah, I can, yes.
So what is that that's important to you? That's something else that's important to you about your health and fitness, Mark?
There's a little bit of, well, there's a couple of different things, I suppose, none of them which are the main ones. It's quite tricky to get it down to one word, but there's a little bit of vanity, I suppose.
Yeah, vanity.
I will not deny. But also something about reward for hard work.
Reward for hard work, reward. Excellent. Thank you, Mark. So you can see that that was one way that helped Mark find some things that were nowhere on the list before. And then the other one is considering, again, one of those occasions. You might ask, I'm going to ask Mark, think of one of those 2 occasions, choose one. and think, what was it that happened moments before that that motivated you to be in that situation where health and fitness was just right for you? What was it that prompted that experience to happen where health and fitness was just right for you? What was getting your juices flowing, your heart pounding, what was it that was happening that motivated you?
Not sure it was a single event, actually. I think it was an environment as much as anything else, a few different things. Quite hard to.
Is there something about the environment that's important to you, Mark?
Yes. I think something about sustainability. So I try and walk or cycle and avoid driving as much as I sensibly can. And I think it was one drudgy, slow commute to work too many in the car, and made me think, actually, I could cycle this 10 miles quicker. And so I did the next day.
Oh.
And then eventually I thought, after doing it a little bit, I went out and got myself a decent road bike and cycled it a lot quicker. And so it was environment initially, but actually then it's just the exhilaration of cycling and actually getting to work faster than the guys sitting there in their cars doing nothing very much. So there's also I suppose a slight sense of feeling good about yourself by doing it as well, I think, as well as the environmental impact or lack of environmental adverse impact, shall we say. All that made sense.
Okay, so let me just check back with you, because it sounded like a very useful. So some things that are important to you about health and fitness include the sustainability, exhilaration, and feeling good about yourself. Does that sound right? Is that
yeah.
Excellent. And then I'd probably run through and remind Mark of all these elements. Kevin, I'm wondering if I need to go on with the prioritising now rather than having a break.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. And I just want to point out something, because I think it was such a great example of the NLP approach to coaching. Just to recap what Rita did there, you noticed that she asked Mark to think about a time when health and fitness was, 10 out of 10 for him, and waited until he, in his mind, found that experience. Notice there was no need to articulate, no need to share. Rita didn't need to know the content. It's Mark has got that fixed in his mind, yeah? Then she asked him to do the same again with a different example. And then it was, what do you notice is similar between the two? You could ask what's different between the two as well. But notice that what Rita's doing there is managing the process. All of the work, if you like, is happening in Mark's mind, which is exactly where it should be. Yeah. So it's just such a great example of the way in which the NLP process works. The second example, Rita, was what were you asking him as a supplementary question?
How he was motivated before that experience. What was it that?
Yeah, that's right. So again, Mark, lock on to an experience, and then she said, in the moments beforehand, what was the thing that motivated you? Again, there's no need for Mark to articulate that, as long as he's doing it in his own mind, yeah? And then you can ask that question. So the process is very, very simple. It's very process driven. It's not being clouded up by all of this sharing of content, yeah? It's very clear in Mark's mind what he's being asked to do. Okay. So what we're going to do now is Rita's going to share and demo with Mark again part 2 of the process, which is what we call the prioritization. What we'll then do is there's a part 3 which Rita and I will demo after the session today, and we'll record and we'll upload that for you. Then what we want you to do is to work with somebody, elicit the value lists that we're working on here, do prioritization, which is great fun, particularly for you as a coach. When you are the client, it really makes your head hurt. There's a warning, but it's great fun as a coach, and therefore do it with a light touch, make it fun, yeah, as you'll see in a moment. So we want you to do that with your partner. And then the part 3, which is what we call the evidence criteria, which Rita and I will demo after today, and we'll upload that for you to see. And that will form then the second coaching session that we want you to record. So it's a very specific process that we want you to work through, which is, again, very typical of NLP. It's like, today we're going to do this process. Yeah.
Okay. So Mark, are you ready and still with me?
Yeah.
Lovely exercise that we might see a few derivational searches here as well, people, if you want to keep an eye out for it. Mark, what we want to do now, we've got a lovely collection of values and what's important to you about health and fitness, including long, healthy life, being capable of doing things, being active, having a healthy mind, decreased disease resistance, sustainability, feeling good about yourself, exhilaration, variety, and reward. I'm not sure variety was on there, was it? Vanity. Vanity, Mark, you were going to point that out to me, weren't you? That's vanity, however I've spelt it, and reward. So those are the things that you've identified as important to you. And now what's going to be really useful is to put them in a priority order, because values help you make decisions in your life and choices about how you spend your time, what you focus on, and where you put your energy. So we want to have it as a tidy, prioritized list as possible. And there's this wonderful exercise that you're really going to enjoy, and I'm definitely going to enjoy, Mark, when I'm going to help you to come to a prioritized list of these. Okay, are you ready for it, Mark?
Okay.
You're still with me and up for it? Excellent. All right. So, and this is Mark, and for everyone else as well, my post-it notes work really well. We didn't share that hint before, did we? Mark, in relation to health and fitness, what's important to you, if you could have the long, healthy life or have the capability to do things, which would you have? You're only allowed one in this game.
Hello.
So Mark, you could have a long, healthy life or have capability to do things. Which would you have?
Capability.
If you could have being active or a long, healthy life, or have a long, healthy life but not have being active, which would you have?
Being active.
If you could have being active but not have capable ability to do things, or have capability to do things but not have being active, which would you have?
Probably the capability.
Okay, so they stay where they are. If you could have a long, healthy life but not have a healthy mind, or have a healthy mind but not have a long, healthy life, which would you have?
A healthy mind's got to come first.
And so if you could have a healthy mind but not have being active, or have being active but not have a healthy mind, which would you have, Mark?
Probably go hand in hand.
Which one? Sorry. So you could have being active but not have a healthy mind, or have a healthy mind but not have being active, which would you?
I have to go healthy mind.
If you could, that's moving up, so we just check it against the next one. If you could have a healthy mind but not capability to do things, or have the capability to do things but not have a healthy mind, which would you have?
I think you need the capabilities. So yeah.
All right. And if you could have, and I'm just demonstrating it, so I'll probably stop after the next few. If you could have disease resistance but not have a long, healthy life, or have a long, healthy life but not have disease resistance, which would you have?
A long, healthy life.
Okay. And if you could have disease resistance but not have reward, or have reward but not have disease resistance? Which would you have?
Disease resistance.
All right, I'm really getting there. If you could have exhilaration but not have reward, or have reward but not have exhilaration, which would you have?
Reward.
If you could have exhilaration but not have vanity, or have the vanity but not have exhilaration, which would you have?
I'll pick any one from two, I think, on that one. Let's go vanity. Just to close the exercise.
If you could have vanity but not have reward, or have reward but not have vanity, which would you have?
Reward.
Okay. And there's just two, so we might as well. If you could have exhilaration but not have sustainability but not have exhilaration, which would you have?
I'd have to go sustainability.
Okay. If you could have sustainability but not have vanity but not have sustainability, which would you have?
Sadly, I'm probably going to go for vanity.
And those judgments are for you to make if you want, but no one else is going to make those. If you could have, what is this one? Exhilaration, but not have feeling good about yourself, or you could have feeling good about yourself, but not have exhilaration, which would you have?
Yeah, sort of one and the same in some ways. We'll go feeling good about myself.
And if you could have feeling good about yourself but not have sustainability, or have sustainability but not have feeling good about yourself, which would you have?
I'll have sustainability first. We'll leave it as that.
All right. So there we go. How was that, Mike?
It was interesting because a lot of things were sort of codependent. So trying to separate them in your mind wasn't all that straightforward.
You did fabulously.
But actually trying to force yourself to do it quickly is probably the best way.
It's what's happening and what Mark described there, sorting it out in your mind. So to Mark, that what was going on in your mind, that you were probably visualizing or sensitizing, what is that one like compared to that one? So to be able to make a choice, you had to create, visualize, model, create something that you were aware. What does that actually mean? So we just captured a couple of words before, but in answering and making that judgment as to which would you have over another, your unconscious mind had to bring together some understanding for you of what each of these mean. And that's why it can be so powerful. So it makes sense to everyone, that to answer that question, you're visualizing, well, what is that? What does it mean? And then making the answer. Sometimes people cheat. Mark was very good. Occasionally he said, oh, let's say it's that one. And of course it's a demo and everything. But sometimes people will say, oh, no, they're the exact same. So you remind them that this game, the rules are, it's one or the other. Occasionally they might be what you want to check. Are you saying they are the same? If they are, of course, you can choose, well, which one articulates it best for you. But sometimes that's a cop-out of having to make the decision. So just be careful. Don't, otherwise you'll just end up with one at the top sort of thing. So I think there was a little bit of thinking there going on, working it out for yourself, Mark. And like you said, your mind.
Somebody picked up on the eye accessing, definitely. So that was great.
Very good. Okay.
Just quickly to clarify the process. So if you can see the board here, so let's say we've got 4 things, A, B, C, and D. Read, if you could A and not B, would that be okay?
Oh, have you frozen, Kevin?
Yeah. I'm probably frozen. If you could have A and not B, would that be okay? Yeah?
Yeah.
So A is at the top, all right, and then we're saying, Rita, if you could have B and not C, would that be okay?
No. Yes.
All right, so if you could have C and not B, that would be okay, would it?
Yes.
All right, so C has gone higher, yeah, B's gone down. Because it's gone higher, we need to do a challenge here. So Rita, if you could have A and not C, would that be okay?
Yes.
All right, so we're now looking at A, C and B. And finally, Rita, if you could have B and not D, would that be okay?
Yes.
All right, so we've now established our order, yeah? So the rule is, if something is going up, you need to challenge it against the one above until it settles in its place, yeah?
Just like the bumps.
So if that all makes sense, the good news is that was recorded as well, and Kevin's nice sort of demonstration there. Hopefully that's on big screen, so hopefully that's good. The evidence criteria, Kevin, you said we'll do as a little run on. Mark, I was just wondering,
Yeah.
Mark, you wouldn't have 10 minutes to carry on with this, would you?
Yeah, sure.
You sure? Okay. Kevin, that might be nice if we actually just pick one of Mark's to drill through, if we add it to something else we need to. So that's the third element. What we'll be doing next, Mark, we'll be asking you to, so what, these words we put up here, what do they actually mean to you? And it's evidence criteria we're looking to draw out, and we'll do that and share it on the video with you. So I think, is there any pressing questions that are going to hold you back from saying cheerio, having a wonderful time and getting on with the modules?
Just on the, so the other is we watched the final installment of this thrilling episode, and then after we've done that, we need to find someone to exercise our new powers on.
Yes.
And does it have to be someone within the group, or can we find someone?
It's the same rules that applied the last time around when you did your coaching. So it might work well to continue with the person you started, or you could start afresh with someone else.
Somebody else. Okay, thank you.
So a little bit of negotiation and requesting amongst the team and outside the team. And then we do want you to record that again to review what you did well. You will find it a fabulous experience in terms of not getting engrossed in the content or making content or making, being curious about what's happening. So it'll be a great experience for you both each way. Mark will decide what we can do, and you might want to finish me off, as it were. Anything else before we? No? Okay.
All clear? What's great, of course, is that when the person's working through this, they're getting really, really clear on what these words mean.
Okay, and I think Kevin might have frozen again. So I'm going to invite you to really be excited about this. That model is absolutely fantastic in terms of understanding yourself, helping you understand the client and the world around you, and it will have many, many uses. And as a coach, you're going to use it again and again. And the exploration we're doing now of values is going to be so valuable, as the word says. So I'm going to invite you all to unmute, wave and say goodbye, and we will add the presuppositions 5 together with presuppositions 6 when we put them up. I'm sorry that wasn't there before.
Excuse me, can we watch you working with Mark now? Or is that going to be private?
I think Mark has been lovely to demonstrate all the way. Mark, would you be happy if people watched you live, if they're able to stay on another 10 minutes?
Yeah, I don't mind. Yeah.
You don't mind? Okay. So anyone who wants to leave us now, it will be recorded so that we'll upload it. But if you want to stay, you're more than welcome. Thank you very much, Mark, for being so open.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye. Those who are going.
Bye, those who are leaving.
Manage this as well. Okay. All right. And everyone else is staying? Everyone is here? Lovely. Well, Mark, the next thing we want to do, as we were just gathering these, you knew what they meant to some extent when you articulated them. You've got a little bit better understanding through that prioritization process, where in your mind's eye you were working out what each of them means to you. But what's incredibly valuable is to articulate and make these as tangible as possible. To bring these, if we want to ensure that you can have health and fitness the way you truly want it to be, and it is important to you, it's one of your life areas you want to concentrate on, well, let's work out what is that going to look like. When it's a 10 out of 10, health and fitness just the way you want it, what's it going to be like? So we have a document. Kevin, do you want to just share that slide?
Yeah.
But it's going to invite everyone, and we do this either you can ask the client to go away and do it, but it's always useful to do at least one example, because people don't always get the gist of it. So the powerful thing here is what I'm going to ask you for each one, or at least the top 6 of these, Mark. We're not doing them now, but we'll pick one example. We're going to ask you just to think of what it would be like. Imagine, be in that place. So you're going to use your lovely conscious and unconscious mind here to be in a place where health and fitness is just a 10 out of 10 in respect of having a healthy mind. Will we go for having a healthy mind? And which one would you like to do a demonstration on? So you've got capability to do things, healthy mind, being active, having a long healthy life, being disease resistant, reward, vanity. Which of those would you like to explore a bit further as an example here, Mark?
I don't know, just take the first one.
The first one, doing things. Okay, so Mark, it's important to you to have capability to do things. Yes?
Yeah.
So I want you to be in that place where capability to do things is a 10 out of 10. We're in this utopia world where it's just the way you want it to be. Perhaps you need to bring into that mind's eye experiences of the past where it has been like that, where capability to do things has been really, really good. Or perhaps you're making things up, or perhaps you've noticed other people doing things, but that's what you want. The 10 out of 10 capability to do things. We want you to be in that space. And I want you to then tell me, what is it you are seeing that lets you know capability to do things is a 10 out of 10? What are you seeing around you? So be in that place, do whatever you do in your mind's eye. We're going to ask you what you're seeing, what you're hearing, and how you're feeling when you're in that place where capability to do things is 10 out of 10. So what are you seeing? What evidence is there when you look around that lets you know capability to do things is 10 out of 10?
When I'm not, when I actually see something, I'm not trying to be too abstract here. It's very easy to think of abstract things. It's difficult to try and think of tangible things. What I'm seeing.
And it might be people around you. It might be the place you're in. It might.
Yes. So if I take one example, then I'm probably seeing I'm with my family, and I'm unable to keep up with my children whilst we ski down. So
you're seeing your children. You're not. Are you seeing them? Are they behind you? You keep
behind me. No, I think keeping up is good. Keep up is good.
Okay. So you're skiing alongside your children. Okay. So you're skiing alongside your children. What else are you seeing?
I'm seeing maybe quite a challenging run, but one that I'm not too nervous about. I'm able to ski it properly, as it were. So
a challenging run, yeah.
So I'm able to use good technique.
And can you see yourself doing a good technique?
I can, because if you don't.
Brilliant. Seeing yourself doing a good technique, brilliant, excellent. Okay, all right, brilliant. And what can you hear? as you're skiing alongside your children, doing that challenging run, and noticing and seeing that you're doing the technique, what are you hearing?
I think I'm hearing as the edges grip the snow when you turn, you get that nice hard crunch, and you get that, and then that
the snow. Okay.
Yeah, and then the sort of the transition as you then glide out of that into the next parallel. It's just, you get that alternate sort of rhythmic sort of sound that your timing is good. So I think that rhythm and that sort of clean sort of sound.
Rhythmic sound and clean when turning, was it you said?
Yeah. Yes.
So you've got the crunch of the snow when you do that, whatever it is, plow, you didn't want to stop. The rhythmic sound and the cleanness of the sound as you do your turns. What else can you hear as you're there? 10 out of 10.
10.
Knowing you're being capable of doing things. Is there anything else you hear?
There's something also about when skiing, it's also about the lack of stuff you don't hear as well is also quite good, because it's by definition you're away from traffic, you're away from a lot of artificial noise. You don't always hear a lot of nature, because particularly nowadays you've got a helmet on, but I think it's also the absence of other stuff as well, and that sort of
so you're noticing absence and away from traffic noise, etc. And when so you're noticing that. I wonder what is there when the traffic isn't there. What?
Yeah, it's sort of stillness.
Stillness. You're sort of hearing that stillness. Excellent. Okay, well done, brilliant. So, Mark, when you're with your family, skiing alongside your children, seeing a challenging run, knowing that you're doing a good technique, seeing that and hearing the crunch of the snow when you do certain moves, and the rhythmic sound and cleanness as you do your turns. And there's that stillness that you're hearing. How are you feeling?
I think I'm feeling very relaxed. I'm feeling quite confident.
Confident.
Yeah, I think if I can describe it as a feeling, but there's something about being sort of empathetic with your surroundings. I think there's something about it feels sort of like, quite a natural state in a way. It feels like it's a sort of, it's the most appropriate way to travel across snow.
Excellent. So you're feeling relaxed, confident, empathetic with the surroundings, and you're feeling like you're in a natural state.
Yeah.
They're lovely labels for that feeling you're having. I'm just wondering, how do you know you're relaxed? Where is that feeling? In your body. So feeling is like, we have that feeling. Where is it? What is happening inside your body that lets you know you're relaxed and confident?
Because I'm balanced.
Balance.
Because they're in control, I suppose.
Okay.
So that's probably an element of sort of core strength, I suppose. You feel that.
Yeah. So it's lovely, and I just want to take you back there and being there, and you're skiing and everything's great. And normally you probably wouldn't wonder and pause and think, oh, what's my tummy doing? What are my shoulders doing? Where's the feeling? Am I hot? Am I cold? You probably are just doing it all. So just for this exercise, I'm inviting you to be skiing alongside your children on that challenging run, and seeing your great technique, your good technique. You've got the crunch of snow, you've got the rhythmic. It might help you close your eyes because we're asking you about your feelings. There's that stillness in terms of the sounds around you, and you're feeling relaxed and confident. and empathetic with the surroundings, and you're in a very natural state. Now, what's going on in your body? Is there a temperature? Is there a weight? Is there a stillness or a movement? Has it got a colour, this feeling, whilst you're there doing that skiing with your family?
There's probably a relative sense of almost weightlessness in a way.
Weightlessness.
Using the fall of the mountain and your own technique just to take you down. You shouldn't have to fight against it. So I think it's the idea of that momentum, sort of the weightlessness that allows you to ski down without
so
undue effort.
And it's sounding so great. You're articulating it really, really beautifully. What's important is that you're articulating it beautifully for yourself, so you can really associate into that feeling, Mark. And so you've got this weightlessness. So is there something happening in your muscles that allow you to feel that weightlessness? Is the blood pumping in any different way? Is your heart beating in any different way? Are your muscles tense or relaxed, or is there anything else about your body? You said something about your core strength physically. What do you notice just as you pause in this moment on that run?
Yeah, I noticed that I'm using my whole body.
Whole body.
Yeah, so not just your legs or not just your upper body. Which if anyone see me ski, they'll know isn't something I do very well.
10 out of 10 you do.
Perfect. I am on this particular run,
just
yes.
The right way. Just the right way for you at that time. Okay, so you've got that weightlessness and your whole body's in, what did you say, working together, or what was your...
Yeah, I don't know what phrase I used, I can't remember.
So what's your whole body doing?
I think it's it's all working well together in equilibrium. I think I'm not depending on one particular muscle group.
Brilliant. Okay.
I'm not having to think about the movement.
Yeah. So there's an absence of thought. I wonder what's going on when you're not thinking, you're just doing. Okay.
Well, yes, that's when you can appreciate the environment. You don't have to think about how to control the next turn or how to where to shift the weight. It just happens.
Brilliant. So it's not that, but when it's not that, it's body in unison. And when you're seeing this fantastic vista, skiing with your children, alongside your children, seeing your really good technique that's right for you at that time in that place, doing challenging runs that are challenging in the right amount for you, that you're hearing a stillness, you're hearing the snow, the skis against the snow in that way that's whooshes and crunches in the way that lets you know, hey, this is a 10 out of 10. And you're feeling that relaxed, confident empathy with the surroundings, that very natural state where you're not thinking, you're balanced, your body feels there's this weightlessness, and your whole body is working in unison. What do you say to yourself when you notice all that?
What do I say to myself? Won't be facetious. I'll probably resist the temptation to try and do it again and just think, great, that was really good. I'm going to have a beer.
That was really good. I'm going to have a beer.
Yeah.
Okay. It does sound really good, and I think you do deserve a beer. Okay. I'm just noting that. That was really good. And can I just check, because I was writing and chatting at the same time, did you say you deserve a beer, or are you going to have a beer?
I said I'm going to have a beer. I didn't say I would deserve a beer. Yeah.
Excellent. So you're going to have a beer. That was really good, and I'm going to have a beer. Brilliant. Well, that is your evidence criteria and the purpose of it. Mark, how was that for you? Me asking those questions and inviting you to experience a 10 out of 10 as best you could in this circumstance.
Yeah, it was quite. It was quite difficult in places just to try and to articulate what you might imagine what you might visualize, and to be prepared to go that granular on different elements wasn't always that straightforward, and some of the elements are easier to describe than others. But yeah, no, it was interesting though. From it helps contextualize it a lot for the person receiving it.
Yeah. So of course we generalize, don't we, when we say something conceptual, capability to do things, and we were really drilling down, going right down into detail, and the purpose behind that was to make it more tangible. So I'm anticipating that maybe you're looking forward to even more doing all of that and doing all of that. So it's sort of energized your motivation to be in the be physically and make decisions that help you achieve that fantastic state where at the end of the day you said, oh, that was really good, I'm going to have a beer. It's that whole motivation, it's that whole tangibility of it. It's taking it away from this generalized, flippant concept to a much realer, compelling outcome for you. And when you engage with that at the conscious and the unconscious level, your unconscious mind now is looking out for opportunities to get you physically and mentally into places, into practices, into behavioral choices that make it more likely that that's going to happen for you, which is all pretty good. So,
Indeed.
Mark.
Brilliant. Thank you to Mark and to Rita for that demo. Just for those who are still with us, questions and observations? Anybody want to ask anything on the process?
That'd be a no then, would it?
I would like to ask something. It's not just about what Mark's just done, but I would like you to go over the ABCD process again, if you would. I found it a bit confusing. When you're ready.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do that now.
Is everyone else happy to stay for a few more moments? Otherwise, excellent.
Can you see that screen, Joe? I've lost my A,
Yeah,
but I found
I can see a blank screen. Yeah.
All right. So part one of the process is to do the values elicitation. That's to capture the words. So I'm just using an A, B, C, and D here. Yeah. Incidentally, something that we will do, if it's face-to-face, it works really well, is to get the person to put them in what order they think is the priority order to begin with. That's a little bit tricky when it's on Zoom. But the reason for doing that is it's usually quite interesting that they will put it in an order. Let's say I've done this and I've said, well, I think the order is going to be A, B, C, and D. That at the end of the prioritization process, it always changes. So that's an interesting observation. So basically what you're doing first of all is you're taking the top two values, in this case A and B, and you are saying, so Joe, if you could have A and not B, would that be okay?
Yes.
So for example, it might be something like, if you could have challenge, but not variety, would that be okay? Now, what generally happens is the first response is to say, well, no, because both these things are important to me. So they'll say, no, that wouldn't be okay. So what I would do then would be I would just swap them round and I would say, okay, so if you could have B and not A, would that be okay? In other words, if you could have variety and not challenge, would that be okay? Yeah. And again, they might say no. So you playfully then just put them the other way around. And I think as Rita has demonstrated, you are making them aware that you're not going to let them off the hook until they decide one or the other. And sometimes what you can say is, if you could have A and not B, or B and not A, which one would you go for? Now that's a closed question that they have to choose, yeah? So you're doing it with rapport, you're doing it playfully, and eventually you get them to a place where they choose. So let's say they choose B as being more important to A. So, you know, we've changed the order now. The next step then would be to say, okay, so if you could have A and not C, would that be okay? Let's say they say no again. So you then swap it round and you say, okay, if you could have C but not A, would that be okay? And what happens is they kind of get what's happening then. They get that it's a game and they get that they have to choose, so they start playing along. Yeah. So let's say they say, yeah, okay, I'll have C instead of A. So A's now gone down to position 3 and C's gone up 1. Now, C is on an upward trajectory and it might actually get all the way to the top. We don't know that yet. So we've got to test it against the one above. If it's going upwards, we test it against the one above. So I would then say, okay, so if you could have B and not C, would that be okay? Let's say they say no again. So you would reverse it and you would say, okay, if you could have C and not B, would that be okay? And if they say yes, then C has risen all the way to the top. Yeah. So what we've done is, so far, we've checked out the top 3 so far. Yeah. And we've got one more to do. So we test it against the one above, which it happens to be A. So we say, if you could have A and not D, would that be okay? They say no. If you could have D and not A, would that be okay? And they say, yeah, okay, all right. So A's gone right down to the bottom now. D's on its way up. So we need to test it against the one above. So we say, if you could have B and not D, would that be okay? Let's say they say no. If you could have D and not B, would that be okay? Let's say this is a real sticky one and they say no again. So we just go back and we say, okay, if you could have B and not D, would that be all right? And then they go, yeah, okay, that's it. So we've done all the testing now, and we've ended up with a different order. And notice that, you know, at no point am I talking about content. I'm obviously repeating the value back to them, but I'm keeping the process very clean, which is why I can demonstrate it just as well with C, B, D, and A, because really it doesn't matter to me what the content is. But what's important is what's going on in the individual's mind. If you're saying, you know, you could have respect, but not challenge, would that be okay? they're having to go deep inside and really work out what those two terms mean to them. So all of the real work, the real processing is going on in the other person's head, which is exactly where it should be. All you're doing as a coach is you're managing the process. And that's great because you've got to keep a clear head to manage the process.
So would you encourage the client not to make comments? Like, I've done this exercise with you and I felt I had to discuss it with you. I felt I needed to say, but Kevin, challenge is very important to me, actually, because
Yeah.
So do you need to kind of ignore me a bit when I'm doing that content stuff?
Not really. If the person is wanting to articulate out loud, that's fine. If that's their way of working things through, that's fine. What I'm doing though is I'm dipping into the content if I need to, but I'm really staying out of it and letting them resolve this dilemma of A or B or whatever it is. So it's really important to keep a clear head. And this is very much, again, the NLP approach, which is focusing on the process, not on the content. The content is what's going on in their head. And it's such an incredible exercise because in order for them to decide A or B, they're really having to get in touch with what these things mean to them, perhaps in a way they've never even done before.
I know, and it did do my head in when I did it with you. So I thought Mark was quite quick, actually. How do you handle the timing in this? Do you let people take the time they need to take, or do you hustle them along a bit?
Well, a bit of both, Joe. I think, it takes as long as it takes, but I think where you can help, particularly with the time-wise, is keep focused on the process. And also, if you keep that light touch, with a smile, with a twinkle in your eye, if you could have A and not B, would that be okay? I know this is a tricky decision. And of course, in reality, you can have all of your values satisfied. But in this little game we're playing now, you need to decide between A and B. That's basically what the approach is. So you're keeping it very light so that they can play along quite happily. And that'll help with the time as well.
Can I add one thing as well in terms of helping with the time, Joe? Just the priming with your client in the positioning, saying that you don't require to understand all the detail because you're trusting they know what they're doing. Sometimes that priming, if someone does find it useful sometimes to talk, it is trusting that the unconscious does actually know and it doesn't need to be articulated. So sometimes just having a little bit of upfront saying, I'm quite happy if you want to explain it, but it's not something I need, because some people think that's what the coach is wanting to hear and they're wanting to rationalize and justify it. But actually, I don't need that. And I trust that you know what you need to know about the detail. So sometimes that can help, but sometimes it's really great for a person to talk it out. But just that priming beforehand might be helpful as well.
Thank you.
And I think the other thing is keep drawing it back to that value, which is often a single word. Keep reinforcing the single words or the 2 or 3 words that are encapsulating the value. That helps to keep the process clear as well. Any questions from anybody else or observations?
I've just got a quick question on the process, on the exercise we've got to do, because that's probably sort of subverting it, so you have to stand back from it. But obviously we'll go through with somebody else, we're going to go through the values elicitation and then the prioritization.
Yeah.
For the evidence bit, I presume we're just going to take, because we just took one example there and obviously caught quite a lot of detail. So presume we can't do that for everyone, otherwise it will be an hour long, 2 hour long session. So presume we're just picking a couple to be able to do that. Is that the plan?
I think it's fair to just do one with the client on the recording and invite the client to complete the rest for themselves. So that doesn't need to be recorded. I mean, like Joe said, it can be a reasonably long process. It can be a whole sort of session, but often you can also just ask the person to do it, but we're wanting to see evidence that you understand how to do it yourself. So that's why we're asking you to work through it, at least one of them. But maybe like I did with you, Mark, just invite the client to choose which one they want to do. And it might be the first one, but it could be any of the others.
Okay.
What you might then do, though, Mark, is I know some people are contracting to do sort of like follow-up sessions. As Rita says, for our purposes, we just need to see you demonstrating the evidence criteria on one of them. But if you want to work for your own practice and for their benefit as well, and work all the way through, that's kind of up to you, really.
Yeah.
I think something you do find when you often people find that it's the same situation as you get further down the list, that the same things you've already identified as evidence criteria further up cover the ones further down. So in practice, I find that people probably do around 6 on average. They take the time and energy to articulate those very powerfully. And then the others sort themselves out unless there's something a little bit different, and then it's worth picking up on that one as well.
And people get quicker at doing the process as well. So, the first time you work through evidence criteria, they really, might not understand what you're asking them. But once they've done 1 or 2, then you ask the third one and they just get it straight away. So the process quickens up as you go through.
Yeah.
And then, Rita, did we touch on the current satisfaction rating?
No. So that was the other thing.
So
stick back to the slide, maybe.
Yeah. So what we'd like you then to do is, having got the evidence criteria for one of them, and of course the evidence criteria is describing a 10 out of 10 situation for them. We want you to then ask them, so what is this like now? To what
extent
is this value being, in which case it looks like this? Yeah. Or is it a 2 out of 10 out of 10?
Frozen.
Frozen.
I'm moving now.
You are.
Did everybody get that in terms of the current satisfaction rating?
Yeah.
Yes, that was the form you showed us. Oh, right. Yeah.
So the right hand side here is where you'll have the satisfaction rating. And what's written at the top here for evidence criteria: I know when I have this because I see, I hear, I feel, and I say to myself. And then
so on that top line, would Mark have written?
So what we
say, I know this because I hear. Would one line be the hear, the crunch of the snow? Would that be one line, or would you be filling out the whole sheet with, say, 10 different values or whatever number there are there?
So use the sheet in the first instance to capture down the left-hand side each value. So let's say you have 6 to 10 values down the left-hand side column here. And then against each value, so for Mark it was capability to do things would be written in this first box here. And then in the main box here, he or the coach would capture, I will see myself skiing alongside my children. I'll see the progress on a challenging day. I'll see the technique, and also then carry on, I'll hear. So you're using this box. I mean, if it takes more boxes, that's just logistics, it doesn't matter. But in general, what I use is one box for each value here, and then you put all the hear, see, hear, feel, and say to myself alongside it in the middle column. But that's more a practicality really, but you do want to capture each value, and for each value you want to capture how it's experienced in the evidence, and then for each value consider the current satisfaction rating in the right hand side. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. What you'll notice, of course, when you ask those questions, the see, hear, feel, and say to yourself, people will be able to answer those questions to different degrees, depending on what their preferred representation system is. So if you ask me, you know, what do I see? I might be coming up with lots of pictures. If you then ask me, what do I hear? I might, oh, I don't know. I might struggle to come up with something, but you know, that's fine. So I think that's everything, really, isn't it? Again, big thank you to Mark for allowing us to capture that, and to Rita for doing it. I think what we'll do is we'll point everybody to the bit after the first 2 hours, that they can witness the prioritization being done and the evidence criteria being done. So
yeah.
And if you've got any more questions, get back in touch.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
We'll see you next time. Stay curious.
Excellent.
Manage
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Keep well.